Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Katherine Reed, and today we're talking with the Executive Director of the Vienna Jammers. That would be Dave Reynolds. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So this was very interesting. You were introduced to me by Holly Siebold, who is very well known in Vienna. She said, you should interview this guy. And of course, I had heard about Vienna Jammers, but didn't know a whole lot about you. You've got a very interesting story to tell about this percussion ensemble.
Yeah, the Jammers goes back to 2005 is actually where it began. I started teaching at Vienna Elementary School in 2001, and about my fourth year, give or take, one of my current students' older brother, who was old enough that I hadn't taught him, was a percussionist at James Madison High School. And he came to me and said, I'm looking for some community service projects, something to do a little bit different. And I'm a junior, I'm looking at college applications. What do you think about doing a percussion ensemble for kids, like elementary school aged? And I said, great, let's do it. And so he came and helped out. We opened it up to whoever wanted to do it that first year at Vienna Elementary School. We had about 26 kids that were interested, and we just rehearsed after school using the instruments we had. And Dave Cohen came in, who had suggested this, and he came in and he helped out for the next 2 years. And then he got into UVA with his application. His essay was based upon, starting this percussion ensemble.
Which is a great thing to note, is that young people should be inspired to do that thing for which they have passion and which hasn't been done yet. Yeah. So this was kind of amazing that somebody's like, I think I want to do this. What do you teach at Vienna Elementary School that he knew how to get in touch with you?
I'm the music teacher.
So
it's kind of a no-brainer for him, I think.
So you got into teaching music. It was a no-brainer for him to reach because you were teaching his sister.
Right.
And to say, and he's in UVA now, which is wonderful. So from that point, from your little small school-based group, how have you gotten to be, you're much larger today and you're community-based?
Yeah, so we were school-based from 2005 till about 2012. And at that point, I had taken the kids on a few big trips. We had gone down to the Verizon Center and performed for a halftime show for the Mystics. And we had done a few things. We'd gone to Wolf Trap and performed for a Let's Move to Music activity that the Park Services puts on. And I wanted to do more things and bigger things and involve more kids, but I just couldn't do it. We were having 20 spots and I had about 70 kids that wanted to audition. And so I reached out to a woman that I know by the name of Diane Downs, and she is the director of the Louisville Leopard Percussionists down in Louisville, Kentucky. And I just said, hey, listen, I'm on spring break. Can I come down there and just watch what you're doing with these leopards to see what's going on? And she said, sure, come on down. And she was open. She let me come into the rehearsals and check everything out. And they are a community-based percussion ensemble of kids, but they started similarly. She started it at her elementary school, and after about 10 years, their administration had changed over and they just weren't supporting it, so she just thought, well, let's go out into the community, make it bigger, and so she did. And they've been around for about, I think they're 25th season now, so they've been around for longer. So I said, let me learn from someone who's done this. And she gave me all the help that I could get. And so I came back in 2012 and we took 16 kids and we went from the school-based Vienna Jammers to a 501c3 Vienna Jammers that was open to the community at large. And that was 2012. And one ensemble, 16 kids. And now we've got, 6 years later, we've got over 120 kids. We have 5 different ensembles. We have a steel pan group. We have an adult group that meets. And we have over 26 schools represented in the Vienna community, which is super awesome. And I still get kids from Vienna Elementary School where I teach, but word of mouth has gotten out there now.
So you do have an adult group. I was just about to ask, what happens when people age out of being a Vienna Jammer?
Yeah, so you age out after 6th grade from our marimba group, our primary percussion group, and you can continue to do Jammer Steel, which is the steel pan ensemble, from 7th grade until you graduate high school. And we're actually now at we have our first senior this year, so we're graduating our first senior. But then this year we kind of experimented with doing an adult group that comes in a couple of Fridays a month and just for fun, and it's a great outlet for non-musicians and musicians to just come and make some music on some percussion.
You bring up something important about percussion and musicians and non-musicians, right? Because percussion is an instrument. Totally. Marimba and drums and cymbals and all of those percussion things. but you don't necessarily have to play an instrument like the flute or the clarinet. So is this something that people can pick up more quickly, or is something that somebody who doesn't know how to read music can participate in?
That's a good question. Not to offend any percussionists out there in the world, because the top percussionists in the world have spent long hours in the practice rooms, woodshedding and getting their, just really getting their craft down. But to start off, I think probably percussion is one of the easier instruments to initially make a sound on. On a trumpet, which is what I started on, you have to create this buzz in your lips and get the embouchure just right. And on a flute, you have to get the wind to go right across the hole just right. But in percussion, you lift something up and strike it, and if you do it pretty close to right, it'll make a sound. And so that's kind of it's an easier entry point. Similar to piano, it's in the percussion strings family, it's a combo, but piano, you can go up and touch the piano and it'll make sound for you. So it is an easier entry point, but it definitely requires a understanding and a feel for pulse and beat. And you can, of course, develop that along the way. But yeah, it's definitely a easier entry point for musician and non-musicians.
So with an ensemble, so you explain the different ensembles. Some of them are like trash cans. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, well, we use all different kinds of percussion instruments, and we stretch percussion because percussion instrument is just an instrument that you can strike that has some sort of membrane, right? So a trash can, it can be a percussion instrument. This table here, this could become a percussion instrument. And so there's a couple of groups out there that have done this before. Stomp is a famous group that all they do is make music off of trash, right? Found sounds, they call them. And so we do a variety of both. We focus a lot on marimbas, which are like xylophones, but we also play trash cans and buckets and steel pans and drum sets and tubanos and djembes and you name it. We try to play it.
That's so young people who are interested, who may not have previous musical experience or play any other instrument, are eligible and just as likely as anyone else to be quite successful in your ensemble.
Yeah.
Is there an audition? I mean, how do young people actually get involved? What is the process?
So our youngest kids that we take are second graders. And essentially how it works is we have a experience camp in the summers, and that's like a half-day camp where they come in 5 days a week and they get a little sampling of a few basic styles, types of percussion instruments within the percussion family. And during that week-long process, that also serves as an audition for the year-long ensemble. The kids get a chance to figure out if this is something they enjoy doing and if it's a good fit for them, and I get a chance to see if they're a good fit for the ensemble. Are they going to be able to keep up with what we're doing? Do they have this natural ability to feel that pulse, or do they need a little bit more work? And we basically have a few different ensembles. Some practice twice a week and they perform more, and some just practice once a week and it's a little bit lighter workload. And so I have an opportunity to take a few kids in each ensemble every year as we age out the other kids. And so it's kind of a audition during that experience camp.
And the whole thing too about an ensemble is you're not playing by yourself. So you really, like in any group activity of any kind, the whole thing is how you fit in with the larger group.
Yeah,
right?
The beauty of an ensemble is you learn how to listen to each other. You learn how to respect each other's sounds. You learn where you fit in at times and how that changes. And that's a life lesson for all of us in the world, whether we're creating music in an ensemble or not. So I love it. I love teaching kids.
Well, obviously you do. And I mean, it sounds like, I don't know when you have time to eat or sleep or anything like that, because you're teaching, you're doing camps, you're doing multiple rehearsals all week long, and then you're performing. Like, how are there enough hours in your day for that? It sounds like a lot.
There aren't enough hours in the day, right? I don't know. I think it's one of those things where if you're passionate about something that you do, you mentioned Holly Siebold earlier, right? She's passionate about what she's doing, and she's, are there enough hours? And you make it work. You figure it out because what you're doing it's enjoyable. And I lucked out when I started my teaching career. I found something that I loved doing and I have a little bit of good skill at. And I happen to be, I get paid for it.
And that's a good thing. I know you've performed in the Vienna Halloween Parade, which is quite legendary here in the Northern Virginia area, and have won multiple awards, I think, every single year for that. But where do you find other kinds of opportunities? Where do you get your gigs for the kids to play?
Yeah, we have 4 or 5 steady gigs every year. We do a big winter concert at Jam and Java. They're a great music venue that has supported us. That's usually our December concert, and we sell tickets to it. It kind of helps fundraise. We have the Halloween parade that you mentioned. We have, every other year, we try to travel further away geographically from this area. So last year we went up to Atlantic City and performed in front of over 1,000 music educators at a big conference there. And we're trying to go to a conference called PASIC, which is Percussive Art Society International Conference. It's a big conference for percussionists, so we'd love to go perform there one day. And then we have, we perform at the volunteer reception for the mayor that she puts on for the town of Vienna every year. And that's just a fun little pre-music gig that we have. And our biggest gig is a culminating event at the end of the year called the Big Jam. And that's where we have all the ensembles performing. We take over Madison High School. It's a hour and 45-minute concert with intermission. And it's just we sell tickets to it and we do a bake sale. And it's just our big fundraiser at the end of the year. But we also try to incorporate other events that happen, that come up. And we also try to get out into places and do more service-oriented performances. We performed at Jill's house, which is a house for kids with special needs.
I'm very familiar
right?
with Jill's house.
Great, they're great outfit out there. And we're trying to get into some children's hospitals and do some retirement center performances. Just really get out into the community in places where this kind of music is just really uplifting from a mental and physical standpoint, And so we try to also incorporate those in the middle of doing the other performances where we, might be fundraising or whatnot.
So I'm assuming that if anybody wants your group, they just need to email you.
Absolutely. Yep. They can send an email to director@viennajammers.org and say, hey, we've got a great opportunity. We'd love to have you guys out. We've got videos up on our website, so if you want to know what we're all about, what the groups sound like, that kind of thing, you can check that out as well.
And I think there are a lot of people who would have your group in if they had some idea that you were available. Because you hit some retirement homes, there's family shelters, there's all kinds of places where they would probably welcome you with open arms.
Absolutely.
So after we come back from this break, we are going to talk further with Dave Reynolds, who is the executive director of Vienna Jammers, which is our community-based percussion ensemble program for young people here in Northern Virginia.
Hey, you.
Yeah, you. Getting that college education, what are you gonna do? Graduate and take some office job? Be like everybody else?
Or will you dare do something different?
Like, be a teacher. You could be my teacher. You got the skills.
The smarts?
Yes, you. You could be the teacher I never forget.
That would be cool.
Does that corporate job even have recess? What are you gonna make of yourself?
What are you gonna make of me?
Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. I already posted it.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Katherine Reed. Today we are talking with David L. Reynolds Jr., the Executive Director of Vienna Jammers, which is a percussion ensemble for young people here in the Northern Virginia area. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So you had referenced your big end of the year program, which is actually going to be May 6th.
That's right, May 6th at 4 p.m. at Madison High School.
And so that's a big culmination of all the work you've done all year long with all of these different ensembles. But also you mentioned that you were 501c3 and the fact that you'd really like to attend this big conference. Now I'm assuming, crazy as it is, that you are out there looking for people to provide funding, not only for the instruments, which I'm assuming have a cost to them, but also to do things like going to conferences. So in addition to people coming out to hear your jammers on the 6th, we also need people to understand that funding is an important aspect of what you're doing.
Absolutely. As a nonprofit performing ensemble, a majority of everything that we're able to do is all generated around fundraising. And we have some incredible business sponsors and individual donors that have supported us through the years and continue to support us. But you're right. In the beginning, it was about acquiring instruments and the cost of those instruments, and we kind of had to amass that first, and that was a big undertaking. And then the next step was getting a sound system when you perform, so that you can actually hear the instruments in an outdoor setting and things like that. And now we definitely, instruments repair and new instruments are always part of that budget that we build in, the amount that we build into the budget. But our biggest costs now are the expenses for the travel, to bring this music and these kids further away than just the Northern Virginia region, which is great. We perform here all the time. It's very supportive in DC and Northern Virginia, but to get these kids and this music out to further reaches is something that is very much one of our goals. And not just to share that music, but also these kids are, you're talking second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth graders that are as our predominant performance group, to give them the kind of opportunity to go perform, travel, get on a plane, go somewhere and put on a performance at such a young age is so huge. When we were just getting started, before we had taken it into community-based ensemble, I mentioned we performed at the Verizon Center. And just being in the bowels of the Verizon Center, right, the backstage, and watching these kids get out on the court and the instruments and hear the crowd kind of get it. We played Michael Jackson's Thriller, and when the crowd recognized boom, 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 that classic bass line, they just immediately like erupted, and the kid, you could just see it, and it was like, yeah, and that, to me, providing that kind of opportunity for kids at that age is an awesome opportunity, right? Like, yes, I want to do that. And so to be able to do that and travel further, right, requires funding. You know, it's easy to just say, everybody meet me down at the Verizon Center because we're close enough you can drive. I can't say, hey guys, meet me out in Disneyland in California. We're going to play for their parade, and we're going to, you know, so you got to get the instruments out there. You got to get the kids out there. There's a lot, and we kind of have a big plan that we start out geographically, and we extended every other year a little further with one more thing added to the trip. So when we went to Atlantic City, we took a bus, and it was a one-day trip, and we came back, right? And the next thing is we need to add something where we can have an overnight aspect. And then the next thing is we need to be able to do this whole thing, but do it flying somewhere. And then the next thing is, well, we need to fly somewhere, but maybe internationally. And then the next thing is, let's go to Zimbabwe, where the marimba started, and let's have the kids experience that in the homeland where the marimba is from, and then have them see a marimba ensemble of kids in Zimbabwe and make that connection and open their minds big time. So like, yeah, that's not going to cost us $5,000. That's going to cost us a lot of money.
You know, that is amazing. First of all, I love how you think. Because that is your big, hairy, audacious goal, and people should have a big, hairy, audacious goal.
It's hairy.
It is, but it's kind of like, yes, we're going to Zimbabwe. We are going to do this thing. And so knowing that and describing that and helping other people get excited about that is huge. Huge.
And there's another element to this that a lot of people, you hear kids ensemble, you hear performance ensemble, you hear percussion ensemble, you hear all those things, but when you experience it, it's a whole, you can't, I can describe it as much as possible. I could even show you some video clips, but when you experience it live and you witness kids at such a young age creating music at such a high level with so much energy and passion and excitement, it's otherworldly. It's like, this is amazing. So,
and it draws people in. To your point about the Verizon Center, people are immediately like, yes, I'm in, right? Because you want that kind of engagement.
Community, totally. So if you want to support that financially, you can go to viennajammers.org, and there's a donate right there, and you can donate online. You can support us that way. You can sponsor us long term.
So people who work for organizations or companies can also do the same thing. So for instance, you know, you're looking for larger chunks of money, or maybe ongoing corporate business or community partners.
100%, yeah.
Right, so hopefully one of the things that this show is going to do is help people, first of all, understand what it is you do, who you do it with, and and what the benefit is, not just to the kids, but all the performances that you're doing at places where, especially things like retirement homes is a good example, where people can't get out. Right. So you're kind of bringing your thing to them.
Right, and that's another, that service side of this performance ensemble is paramount for the community, I think, but also for the kids. Again, they experience like, oh wow, like I didn't even know that this was really right around the corner from me.
Right.
An opportunity for me to do something else and help out and support the community, right? And all those performances have a cost associated with them, right? You got to rent a truck to get the equipment out there. And so it's all of that goes into the fundraising to be able to do not just the big trips that are awesome for the kids and awesome for the community that we go out to, but also the service-oriented trips that are for Jill's house or are for retirement age facility or a children's hospital, things like that. It's just kind of an all-encompassing.
What about taking, so just in my thought process, you've got these instruments that are pretty big, some of them, right? Remember, they're all big. Oil drum. I saw the pictures and it's like, wow, these things are huge.
Yeah.
So how do you transport them? Do you have your own van? Do you have your own truck?
I wish we had a trailer or even a box van or something, a box truck. Penske has been our resource. We rent from Penske. Every time we go out on a gig, we rent a Penske truck, and we've got a road crew now that people volunteer and that are parents in the organization, and we'll get the truck over to the headquarters and we'll have a load out and we'll load it up and then we'll drive it where it goes and unload.
But I would assume that ideally having your own box truck that says Vienna Jammers might be like a really cool thing.
We've arrived.
Right, like you're driving down the highway or up to Atlantic City, trailing the charter bus, you've got your box truck.
Totally.
I mean, I'm visualizing.
Diane Downs with the Louisville Leopards, they have a nice 20-foot long trailer with Louisville Leopards, a wrap on it, and they've got a dedicated truck, and wherever it goes, it's absolutely. You're like, oh, it's the Louisville Leopard,
right?
Oh, it's the Vienna Jammers. It's the X-Man. Check out the X-Man. Yeah.
So I think that's another really achievable goal.
Yeah. Yeah. It totally is. We've talked about it every year and every season. It's like, okay. I don't want to bore you with nitty-gritty details, but like if you get a trailer, you need somebody to drive the trailer, and how long is the trailer? But it's cheaper insurance-wise. If you get a box truck, now you have to pay for maintenance for the box truck, and you've got insurance to add to that box truck.
True.
And there's,
it is. Nothing's
like
ever simple or
not.
easy. But right now you say you have what, 120?
We've got 120 kids.
Okay, and is there a capacity or to expand that or not? And as far as costs, or do these kids have a cost? Is there?
Yeah.
So are you trying to overcome kids who want to participate but might not necessarily be able to pay a fee or?
Right. That's a great question, Katherine. Do you do this for a living?
I do sort of do this for a living, but but that's how I think, because there's lots of kids who would like to do things, but they're just not in a position where they can.
Yeah, financially. The kids pay a tuition for 9 months of the year. Depending on what group they're in, it ranges in cost, but we definitely have scholarship. So any kid that can afford to do it, as long as they can get into our fold by doing a mini camp first or doing an experience camp, which is part of the audition, and there's a spot. Finances are never an issue as far as whether a kid can participate in Jammers or not. Some of the issues you did mention would be capacity, right? So we can't, we have 5 different ensembles already, and each of them range from about 20 to 28 kids. You reach a point, our Jammers headquarters, we're pretty packed in it, and we just moved to a new headquarters that's bigger, right? So there's only so many kids you can take in each ensemble, and so that's more the limit right there is the number of kids in an ensemble. But it's never a financial issue. We've got, that's another, goes into that big fundraising bubble of, we got a kid here who financially can't do this. Let's take care of it. Let's give them scholarship. Let's give them financial aid, whatever we need to do to support them.
Have you found places that are possible grant makers for you?
The Arts Council of Fairfax has been our #1 biggest supporter and grant. We've been the recipient of their grants. They've been huge. They usually are, the past 2 years, maybe 3 years, they've sponsored us at our $5,000 level, which is our top level thus far. And it's through their grants. So we apply for their general operating grants and their fast track grants, and they have been very very supportive of the organization of the Vienna Jammers. They love what we do, and we love that they support us. And so that's been a big one. We do have a grant. We have a grant committee.
Okay,
and
that's good.
yeah,
Good to know.
And so they definitely are always on the lookout for other grant opportunities.
Yeah, I mean,
to raise money that way.
the arts are tough for everybody.
Yeah.
There's limited money, but so important, especially for school-age children, I would think.
Yeah.
So talking about capacity, so you're talking about a space limitation.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do about another Dave Reynolds? I mean, do you have a
Well, there is
up-and-coming-
another one we talked
I know
about.
we did, but like, is there a lieutenant? Is there
Yeah.
some sidekick in your future who's going to be like, I've got somebody coming back who was part of the program,
Yeah,
and now
yeah.
they're going to help me to expand it because you're just one guy and there's only 24 hours a day.
Right. Well, last year we were able to have enough funding to support an assistant director. So we found a wonderful gentleman by the name of Dakota Kaler. He was a grad student at Mason, which was a great resource in percussion. My background is music education. Trumpet was my primary instrument. Piano was my first. Guitar, I play a lot of different instruments. I didn't really get into percussion until I started teaching in my 20s. On the other hand, Dakota Kaler, he went to his undergrad for percussion pedagogy and performance, and did his grad work in the same area. And so we've been so fortunate to have him on board. So he's helping out now, and I'm doing this interview right now. And we have a rehearsal at 4:15, and but it's okay because he's there.
So two places, you are actually in two places at one time.
Exactly.
So the only thing I want to remind our audience is that May the 6th at 4 p.m. at Madison High School, you can be part of supporting the Vienna Jammers. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.